everyone, and welcome back to Granted Gardens. My name is Melissa, and today you're going to see me doing a little bit of work here in the kitchen. I've got some stuff that I'm canning, so you'll kind of come along for the ride, but that's not really necessarily what this video is going to be about. This video, I really wanted to focus on those people that might be following the homestead community, might be interested in participating in the homesteading community or living that lifestyle, but are just far too intimidated and have no idea where to start. There is a lot of concepts that come into changing your life into a way where you have more control over the things that you need, the things that you create, and the food that you eat. The benefits of homesteading are that you start to learn about the things that are necessary in life, the things that you can't live without, and you start learning how to make them yourself. This was a big part of why I gained such an interest in the community and decided that I wanted to start participating in it. My entire life, I've always been extremely crafty. I've always really loved to make my own stuff, find different ways of obtaining things that I need, but I never really knew what that was called. I could never really pinpoint what that was or what that meant to me. As a child, it was very much into just like arts and crafts. As I got a little bit older, I dabbled into trying to, grow my own food or make my own things that I needed. But then as I started researching those concepts, I started uncovering the meaning behind homesteading. So to me, that's really what it means. It's about being as self-sufficient as possible. And so today I want to go over my top 6 things that I started when I started learning about homesteading and implementing it into my life. So these top 6 things are going to be basics, okay? If you're at an area where you're interested in it, but you just have no idea where to start, these 6 things are going to be a great starting place for you to get your feet wet and kind of start understanding the lifestyle and the needs required for it. So, without further ado, my very first thing that is something that you can start homesteading today, right now doing, is preserving food. So what I'm doing right now, I've got leftovers today that are left over from Thanksgiving. Here I've got some pumpkin puree that I made from an actual pumpkin, a Cinderella pumpkin specifically, and I went ahead and I canned it. So we made 2 pumpkin pies, and I had a ton of pumpkin puree left over. So today, I had canned them yesterday. Today I'm just labeling them. And then next I'm gonna move into canning my bone broth that I made from the bones of the turkey that we had for Thanksgiving. Mind you, we had an early Thanksgiving with some family, so I'm a little ahead of the game here. But I wanted to kind of show you guys what that looks like. And again, just introduce you to the concept. So there's many ways that you can preserve food. One of them obviously being canning. So with canning, there's 2 different ways you can can. You can pressure can or you can water bath can. Water bath canning would be my recommendation for a place to start. It's a lot more simpler, it's not quite as intimidating. Some of the things that you can water bath can are things that are high acid, so say like tomatoes or pickles. Those are great places to start. And if you are completely unsure about where to start with water bath canning, I highly recommend Ball Books. That's really where my first go-to was. I purchased a Ball canning book, and they've got great tried and true recipes in there that you can stand by and know that they're going to be safe. That's a great place to start to kind of get your feet wet, decide what kind of foods you like, and start canning them. Now, if you want to start canning things that aren't high acid, that's where the pressure canners are going to come into play. We had got a brand new stove last year, and it was a glass top, flat top. And I had done my homework, but I did not know anybody that had ever pressure canned. So I was really just going based off of the stuff that I had heard about online. And I had heard a couple stories about the fact that pressure canning on a flat glass top stove can be scary. I don't know how true this is. I don't know what the outcome is in general. I just heard some stories and it turned me off a little bit. But I did know that I really wanted to start pressure canning. So I actually did some homework and found an electric pressure canner I am not being sponsored by this company at all whatsoever. This is just based off of my own research and the direction that I decided to go in. So I got a Nesco pressure canner. It's an electric pressure canner pressure cooker. And I've been using that ever since for any of my low acid stuff that I'm trying to prep, that I'm trying to can. So examples of that being like my bone broth, okay? I make a ton of bone broth. We save all of our carcasses from chickens or turkeys or ham, any kind of ham bones, and I make bone broth out of all of them. So this is something I do on a very regular basis, but prior to having my pressure canner, I was just freezing it, which that's another way that you can preserve food, is freezing. But the pressure canner is beneficial because it doesn't eat up a bunch of space in your freezer. So moving on to the next is freezing. Freezing is by far one of the easiest ways, I think, to preserve food. I freeze everything from my bone broth to tomatoes to peppers, anything from the garden. I've got zucchini in the freezer, blueberries, strawberries, everything. You just pick, rinse, and toss into a freezer bag, gallon-sized freezer bag, label it and toss it into the freezer, and then you can use it as you want. When you, bits at a time, you can just pull out of the bag and use. So freezing is another really great way to store food. Now the next thing that I got into, because I do have an herb garden that I like to use to make all of our herb blends. I also like to make teas with stuff. So the next thing that I had to get was a dehydrator. By far one of my favorite tools to use in the kitchen during the summertime is that dehydrator. Virtually anything that you can freeze, you can also dehydrate. And this is going to, again, save space in your freezer and give you a variety of things that you can use throughout the year. I've dehydrated everything from herbs, which I save in jars. I end up just grinding them up a little bit and saving them in jars, to strawberries, apples, blueberries, mushrooms I've dehydrated. So you can dehydrate virtually anything. And that's another really great way to store your food and have it accessible to you throughout the year. Now, another thing that we also do is fermenting. So fermenting, eventually it does have to end up in the refrigerator. However, it can lengthen the life of your fruits or vegetables, depending on what you do. Recently, I had fermented some peppers, and those were delicious. I was really excited about that. That was the first time I ever did it, and they turned out stellar. Some other things that we have going on right now is apple cores that we are fermenting to make apple cider vinegar. We ferment kombucha, so you can make drinks with it. Tyler does his wine and his mead. Oh, and then recently I actually had a viewer recommend to ferment our cucamelons, because cucamelons is one of my favorite things to grow, but honestly, you just get such an abundance from them, and I did not know what to do with them at all. I had a viewer recommend that we ferment them, and I recently did that, and they were amazing. The next thing that you can do, number 2, for something that you can do to start homesteading right now, is to learn how to grow your own food. This is something that can be done in virtually any space at virtually any time of the year. Obviously, when people normally think about growing your own food, they envision these really large, extravagant gardens that happen during the spring and summer seasons. But that's not the only time or the only opportunity to grow your own food. There's a lot of things out there, a lot of tools out there that offer you the ability to grow your own food in a small space. So throughout the years, we've shared on our channel here ways that we do container gardening. We grow a ton of our vegetables right on our back deck. Other ways that you can grow outside of the standard season is by having a grow light system set up in your home where you can grow things like microgreens throughout the year and have something to cut from and make a salad or put on a sandwich. Right now, we're actually attempting to grow tomatoes in our grow station downstairs. So that's interesting. Stay tuned to see that. Another thing that's really great about starting to learn how to grow your own food, even if it's on a small scale, you do learn about the changes of the season, what grows best in what areas in your own area. Just by trial and error in your own backyard or in your own window, you start to learn what is in season. And with that, you can also start shopping locally for the food that you want to eat. So instead of going to the grocery store and buying, say, a pineapple in the middle of winter, which you know could not have possibly grown local here to us in Maryland, you know what's in season. So you know maybe mushrooms are in season right now, or greens are in season right now. So you can go to your local farmers and purchase stuff that is grown locally that's available to you. And with that, you can also utilize ways of storing your food by buying what's in season during that time, buying an abundance of it, and then learning how to preserve it for later. All right, so number three, biggest, which I think is the most important skill to learn when you're learning how to start homesteading, is how to cook from scratch, okay? You need to know, once you start growing your own food, how to use the stuff that you're growing. So this is not necessarily something that you have to have a massive garden for. You can start out by just going to your grocery store and buying simple things like peppers and onions and garlic and learning how to implement those into making an actual meal. You can start doing things like making your own pasta. Making pasta or bread from scratch is not hard. That's stuff that you can learn how to do now that can help you later down the road when you have an abundance of vegetables or abundance of herbs coming in and you need to make a meal out of them. That's very simple to make some pasta, throw in some vegetables, throw in some herbs, and you've got a meal. Think about the stuff that your family eats the most of and figure out how to make that from scratch, whether it be bread or pasta, or if it's something even outside of that. Do you choose to drink every once in a while? Learn how to make your own alcohol. Do you drink a lot of teas? I love tea. So growing a tea garden or an herb garden was high on my priority list. These are all things that you can make by yourself, that if you went to the store and purchased them, they would cost probably double, triple, if not quadruple more than what it would cost you to just make them or grow them yourself. So start there. Next time, instead of going to the grocery store and buying your tea blend, check the spice aisle and see if you can purchase spices in bulk and make your own tea. Or if you don't have access to the things that you like in your tea at your grocery store, maybe look online to see, instead of buying Sleepy Blend tea, you can just go online and see if you can buy bulk chamomile and maybe bulk dried blueberries and add those together to make your teas yourself. These are skills that will benefit you in the long run. These are things that you can not only save money by learning how to do, but they're also things that are valuable to other people. They're great as gifts or for trade. So make sure that you take a look at some of those things that you guys use most often and figure out how to make them all on your own. Now, one other thing that you can learn how to do now in virtually any time of the year, any season, no matter where you are, is to start learning how to save seeds. Saving seeds can be just as simple as buying something from the grocery store, like a green pepper, and just instead of pulling out the seeds and throwing them in the trash, save them, put them on a paper towel or paper plate, let them sit out for a few days until they're nice and dry, and then storing them in a Ziploc baggie. Now, when you purchase fruits and vegetables from the grocery store, sometimes they do have stuff in them, either sprayed on them or they're modified so that they actually last longer on the grocery store shelves, and that can make them not quite as desirable when trying to reseed. So if they've got something in them that is making them not sprout because they want them to last, they don't want the seeds to sprout while they're on the grocery store shelves, then you might not get a very good germination rate out of those particular seeds. But if that's all you have access to, knock yourself out, honey. Now, some other ways that you can obtain seeds, obviously, is by purchasing them through seed companies. That's a really easy way to make sure that you know exactly what kind of fruit, whether it be fruit or vegetable, that you will get, that will produce from that plant that you grow. But some of us but that can also get extremely expensive depending on how much of a variety and what kind of stuff you're looking to grow. One other thing that I recommend highly is that you look into things called seed libraries in your area. So either seed libraries, which are usually a destination that's set up somewhere in your community. Sometimes it can actually be at your local library. I would start there and ask them if they have seed libraries available. Otherwise, a lot of times just citizens throughout the county might create things that look kind of like my little libraries, if you've seen those. So just a little box that's out in the community that instead of having books in it or food in it, sometimes I've seen people that do food giveaways, they actually have seeds. If this isn't something that's in your community, I highly suggest looking into it and maybe creating one. I think that this is a really great resource for your community, and it's a really great way for you to obtain free seeds from other people that might be interested in the same stuff that you are, without having to pay the seed companies high prices for seeds or having to generate your own from the grocery store. Now, my fifth skill for learning how to start out homesteading is learning about how to forage. So what does foraging mean? Foraging means when you go out into nature and collect things for yourself that are beneficial in some way. So this can be things that are edible. These can be for medicinal purposes. These could just be for decorations at home, depending on what your ultimate goal is. I do a little of all. So the holidays are coming up, and a lot of times people like to decorate with things like pine cones. When you go out and you find pine cones on the ground and bring them home and set them up to decorate in your house, you're foraging. But the kind of foraging that I'm talking about here is going to be more for either eating or medicinal purposes. So some of the things that I forage are things like herbs or maybe fruits that grow naturally. An example of that around here is blackberries. We have a ton of blackberries all over the place that just grow wild around our house. So a lot of times during the season of blackberries, it wouldn't be strange for you to be driving down the road and see me out with like a container collecting blackberries. Another thing that I really like to forage that grows wild around us is something called honeysuckle. If you're not familiar with what honeysuckle is, it's a flower that grows wild in these areas, and if you pull the flower apart properly, there's usually like a drip of nectar that comes out, and it tastes super sweet like honey. These can be used for all kinds of purposes. I personally like trying to make wine with them during honeysuckle season. Another thing that virtually everyone has access to that is something great to forage is dandelion. Believe it or not, the entire plant of a dandelion is edible, and it has a lot of medicinal purposes as well. So if you're looking for some place to start and you want something simple that you know you can identify, dandelions are a great place to start. There's many things that you can make from them, dandelion wine being one of them, which we have a link to a video I'll share. You can also make dandelion jam or jelly. The roots and the leaves have medicinal purposes, so you can make tinctures from them. The most important part when it comes to foraging is making sure that you know exactly what it is that you're foraging and what those purposes are and how to properly use it. If you ever come across something that you're not sure exactly what it is, don't pick it. So there's a lot of resources that you can utilize to learn how to forage in your area. There are books that talk about what things grow native in areas, so I suggest checking out your local library to see if you can find a foraging book for information on what to forage in your area. And last but not least, number 6, learn how to cook on a fire. This is something that I personally just enjoy the thrill of. Anything that involves a fire, I'm all about. Tyler and I also really love to go camping. So this was a homesteading skill that I accidentally learned before we ever really started talking about homesteading. We were just doing it from camping. Now, one thing that goes hand in hand with learning how to cook on a fire is learning how to use cast iron. Cast iron is a great tool to have. They're very versatile. You can use them both on a stove or on a fire pit, and they make cooking so much more easier and fun, and I think way more delicious. So some ways that you can learn how to cook on a fire. Obviously, getting a fire pit in your backyard would be a great place to start. But there are some people I understand that don't have the ability to put a bonfire pit in their backyard. But that shouldn't stop you. So one thing that we have that is one of our favorite ways to cook in the summertime is a stone pizza oven. I'll go ahead and see if I can find the exact same pizza oven that we have and link it in our Amazon affiliate link. If I can't find the same one, I'll try and find something similar. If that's something that you're interested in, we would really appreciate it if you go through our link. It'll be tagged down below. If you purchase through our Amazon link, it's a great way to support our channel. We may get commission from that sale, so it would be greatly appreciated. Now, if you don't have access to those things, another way that you can get really creative with cooking on a fire is to get a chimenea. So that's another thing that we have that we use all year round. Chimeneas, if you're not familiar, are small kind of fire pits. They're usually shaped like this. And essentially you just start a really small fire in them. It would not be impossible for you to cook with a chimenea. One, you can put things on sticks and cook just like you would over top of an open fire pit. Number two, you can actually set stuff on top and cook from there as well. So cooking over an open fire does not require a massive bonfire pit. You can get extremely creative. Or if you're lucky enough to have a fire inside your house, or possibly even a wood stove, that's a great place to start. Some of us aren't as fortunate. I always tell Tyler, the next house, when we get our forever home, the big house of our dreams, there better be a wood stove in there. Oh, I just couldn't imagine. I would love to cook meals over a wood stove. Make bread, make the whole house nice and toasty and smell real nice. Goals. So these are all skills that are fairly simple to start with. Don't ever feel overwhelmed if this is genuinely something that you're interested in. Know, number one, that you're already in the right place if you're following on YouTube. There's a fabulous community of people that really genuinely just want to teach people how to do this. Number two, make sure that you look for other resources as well. Things like books or attending your local library, podcasts. These are all things that are readily available to you. Oftentimes you can find for free, and they are great resources for learning how to do this stuff. But know that taking the first step is all that matters. Pace yourself, give yourself grace, but know that what you're doing is going to impact your life greatly. These skills that you obtain in this lifestyle are things that people cannot take away from you. This is something that you can know how to do for the rest of your life. And you'll only add on as you start getting your feet wet. You'll notice that it's really not as scary or as intimidating as it may look once you just get started. You start to learn what you're really interested in, finding your own passions, and then you can pursue that and kind of branch off as you go. I congratulate you for making this decision and changing your life. But know that there's a community of people here that are willing to help you, and all you have to do is just take the first step. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we look forward to sharing more with you soon.